Welcome to episode 8 of Spirited Conversations, and today I'm very excited to have Sandra Champlain join us all the way from Boston, and it's not a ridiculous hour at all, is it for you?
Not at all. It's 7 o'clock in the evening.
That's good. Love that. So if you haven't met Sandra, Sandra is the wizard pulling the levers and the buttons behind the very first online mediumship demonstration that I ever watched, just at the start of this COVID-19 lockdown, which is about 9 weeks ago now. And one of the brilliant things coming out of this time is that we have these very fast acting and savvy ladies like Sandra, who knows a few really good mediums and has no fear of the back end tech of putting fantastic people online to gift for free their work and their messages that we don't die in a world-class show called The Gathering. And that's on every Sunday in US time. And you can, watch it for free. But she hosts brilliant mediums, the likes of Kerry McLeod, Philip Dykes. There is Scott Milligan, and she hosts a range of other people that our whole mission is just to uplift and help and help understand this mysterious unseen world that we very much feel that we're a part of. So it was your button pressing, Sandra, that made it look so easy that I was impressed with. But if you have no fear of the online world, I know that you have a fear of dying, and that's something I want to chat to you about. But in the beginning, you were a skeptic, weren't you? And it was the death of your father that really sort of sparked that gateway to learning, even though you'd been dabbling in it a little before. So there are some things I want to talk about too. But you've also written a book, which I'll talk about.
I have.
But let's just start with welcome, Sandra. I'm thrilled to have you.
Oh, Denise, I'm happy. Very happy to be here. And you say no fear behind the online stuff.
Yep.
A ton of fear. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I just felt like these stories had to be shared and these mediums, and I'm going to find a way.
Yeah.
So we have.
And you did. And how easy was it? And how fast?
Pretty fast. My day job is I'm a chef for race car teams. My mom and I own a catering business, and we travel the United States and into Canada. And unfortunately, we have found ourselves without a job because we feed about 800 people per meal, and there's not going to be any gatherings like that for a long, long time. So given we had some time, and I've always wanted to create the We Don't Die world of doing things online. And I have such great friends that I also knew could no longer work, they could no longer travel. And my mouth said, let's create something. And no doubt the spirit world's behind us, because the rate in which I found just the right way to do it and how successful it's become. And it's keeping everyone's mortgages paid and food on the table. And it's sharing these great people with people that normally would never make a trip to the UK or to America or wherever. So we're bringing all of this great afterlife evidence and workshops right into people's homes.
And at an affordable price. But you know what? It was the uplifting that really got me, because this was, as I said, the start of lockdown, and I suffered my own bereavement just at that time. And I was really looking for something, and just to switch on for the price of an email and get these beautiful, I didn't get a message, but I was witnessing beautiful messages and and confirmations, and just the lovely synchronicities that were happening. They really helped my heart. And I know that is the bottom line for mediumship, isn't it? Is healing.
It's healing. Absolutely it is. When we no longer have a fear of death, and we know comfortably our loved ones are there and we're going to see them again, we don't have to have a fear of life. And although there's no replacement for physical touch and that physical person, it does help. It really does help.
So you said you had a fear of death, but then your father passed as well. Tell me about the fear of death.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit on the journey.
Mm.
Back in the mid 90s, I just went through a fear of dying. You know, when you look up at the stars and you start thinking, what's it all about? Well, for some reason, it represented or came into my mind as what happens after I die? Does
Yeah.
something happen? My mom speculates because I worked in a nursing care facility with senior citizens that died
Oh.
often, that
Mm.
that could have planted the seed. And then I had
Mm.
a grandfather pass when I was young,
Mm.
but for whatever reason, I just couldn't stop that mind chatter over and over and over. It
And
would
was
just
it
question, do I
anxious
go on?
or curiosity? What was it?
Oh, it was anxiety. It
Oh.
was going to bed at night, like if this is my last day, you know, do I
Ah.
go on? I mean, it was severe
Oh.
fear. And I worked, so when I was busy working, I didn't think of it. But every
That's
time my mind was quiet, it snuck right in there.
wow.
Yeah, and so very
Oh.
secretly, I went on this journey to see if there was anything I could believe in.
Mm.
Prior to, we grew up Catholic, our family. We went to
I was
church
going to
every
ask you
Sunday.
that. Yeah. Were you religious before that? Did you have a faith or
Our family went to church, but as far as me, I just did the right thing as a kid. You
just
know, I
turned
didn't
up?
care. Yeah, I didn't care. I really never gave it much thought. I went
Mm.
through the rituals of the
Yeah.
services, but I never had any spirituality of my own.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't really even interested. I thought no one had the proof one way or the other. I didn't really buy into it.
Right.
When you
So
say I
that
was,
that didn't waken up the questions for you, but the
no,
questions came anyway.
yeah, and I was a skeptic.
Mm.
We had a medium, a psychic medium, live in the town that we had lived in growing
The
up, and
village witch.
yeah, she made some so outrageous predictions that never happened. That
Oh.
growing up, that became kids don't ever believe in that kind of stuff. You'd have to see it to believe it, if
Mm.
it's real. And so, this is terrible to say, but I used to go into a bookstore and I'd see people sitting in the New Age section, and I'd think, oh, those poor people, if they only knew. They need to, embrace life, get a life. None of that stuff's real. I was so opinionated. So I am the perfect messenger because I was just the opposite, never dreaming I would become this person. Um, but with that fear of dying, that's what had me go on the search. I first studied major world religions, looking for evidence, and
Mm.
everybody believes in the afterlife and
Mm,
all
they do.
world religions,
Yeah.
but that didn't calm my fears. So I had to dabble in something I never thought I'd dabble in, is starting to look in this new age realm. I used to call these people woo-woo people.
Yeah, the woo woo.
Yeah, and I had my first, I actually saw my first medium demonstration, and
Which
my
would have
mind
been
was
very different to the village medium that you medium with big air quotes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I went into that mediumship demonstration that is entertainment, that certainly people that would respond to the medium are plants in the
Planted.
audience. They're going to try to sell us something, and
Mm.
but no one ever did.
Mm.
And the communication was so specific, and I saw what it did to the recipients, and I thought,
Because you can feel it in the room, can't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
I said, this is not fixed. And it was that had me go take a weekend course in mediumship over a weekend in California, paying a lot more money than I had, but
So you
I
were over
had
to
to
the dark
know.
side.
I did, but
Yeah.
that fear had to be quenched. I had to know. And this medium actually said, by the time you're done with the weekend, you yourself are a medium and I will prove it. So I had to go figure that out.
Oh. And did it prove it for you?
Well, let me just tell you what happened. In the beginning, she says, we're not really going to do a medium reading now, but I just want to tell you some of the things involved. And she said, everyone pick a partner. And she says, this is just make believe.
Mm.
Just use your imagination. She says, I want you to imagine you're connecting heart to heart, and that you're just in this loving energy. And she says, the deceased people, they're real people. So
Mm.
they'll stand behind the person. And she says, you just make someone up. And you tell your partner the story of who they are, maybe some attributes about their life or how they looked, maybe what they died of, and perhaps a message. So she says, just practice a little, and we were just making it up, Denise. So I feel like
Yeah.
I'm creative as a chef. So I closed my eyes and I just imagined that there was this nice looking fellow standing behind my partner. I said, you have a grandfather with you on your mom's side. His name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. I saw a big gap between his teeth. There's a big gap between his teeth and windburned skin, blue eyes. And I said, I see him puffing on a cigarette, on a cigarette. And I said, he died of lung cancer. And I'm just making it all up, Denise. And I said, and he never told your mom that he loved her. And he would like very much if you would tell mom that he loved her. So I opened my eyes, ready to say, okay, it's your turn. And just streams of tears coming down her cheeks because her grandfather's name was Jan, from Denmark, fisherman, everything. And then she turned to me and did something very similar about my grandfather. And it was amazing. Now, once we learned how to do mediumship, I think the having to get it right kicked in, and I was wrong.
Yes. Yes. Isn't that the way though? Because it happens naturally through love, doesn't it?
Through love, through imagination, just being free.
Yeah.
And so that moment, it was the opening to this is real.
So skeptic no more.
Skeptic no more. But I didn't tell anybody about it until I took a class in electronic voice phenomena.
Right. Okay, but I'm just going to rewind there because that's what you titled your book, though, wasn't it?
We Don't Die, a skeptic's discovery of life after death.
That's right. And you're the perfect person to write that, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm still a skeptic. There's people that come along and I think, oh, I don't know about that. And I think, well, Sandra, people think that about you. Give them a chance. Our minds, we're all blessed and cursed with this mind because sometimes it's a champion for us and other times it's not our best friend saying negative things.
That's true.
And we all deal with.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's healthy to be a skeptic, especially in this field, isn't it? We need to keep our rational discernment quite there because there's all kinds, there's good and weird and
there are people that prey on the grieving, and that's been throughout the course of history. And I think some of the wonderful kinds of mediumship that were around a long time ago, trance mediumship, physical mediumship, while they still exist today, they are rare and a lot of times behind closed doors. A lot of people preyed on the grieving and created these sideshows, and people fell for them and lost a lot of money, and some things disappeared. So we really have to be careful because they're out there, and
they've all.
It.
They've always been out there.
Yes.
Also, it does reflect a great need. I love that you touched on this thing about wanting to find out, having that big question, because I also know other people that have a similar feeling to you. They are scared of dying, and there is this real feeling that overcomes them. And even though it's very uncomfortable, that is the start of their spiritual journey, isn't it?
It is.
In a way.
Yes. A lot of times heartache is the start of our spiritual journey, or the fear. And so I would not trade the past many years for anything. And I've dealt with some really hard things and a lot of pain, but I saw out of the worst pain I've ever experienced has now come the greatest joy that I'm currently experiencing. And I don't know what the future holds, but the group of people that I surround myself with, and I feel like I live a miracle every day. Some of the things that I witness with the spirit world, it's like, pinch me, getting to go to all these online demonstrations and things. And it's incredible. So I'm a happy girl.
And I just can't believe how well it has fallen together, for you guys. You're just going from strength to strength. But the doorway to that big questioning, like you said, can be fear, or it can be someone passing too. So you mentioned you did lose your father. I did read it in your book, and that was a very big event for you as well. Did that consolidate your feeling of the afterlife, or did you already have that beforehand?
I had it beforehand, but I put it off to one side. I got busy in life, wasn't even thinking about it. My fear was rested. I did feel a little sense of guilt with everything I knew that I could be telling people, because I knew there was a lot of grief. And it wasn't until the death of my dad and the time surrounding his death, people may not know that there's a preliminary grief that can happen before someone dies.
Yes.
And you go through all the stages of grief. And I had close relationships with my siblings, and we became one of those families that fought. It was very, very ugly. And not only did dad pass in May 2010, but the relationships with my siblings was severed as well. They labeled me as like the greedy, narcissistic sister, which I'm not even close to that. Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it? Families can completely fall apart.
And I hit an all-time depression, not suicidal. However, I understood why people, or how people who had felt this bad would take themselves out of life. I had understanding for that. And something like a light bulb went off, and it's just like, Sandra, this is not who you are. What is going on here? This is not who my siblings are. And I actually took the time, Denise, to search far and wide into this world of grief. Not only why does it have to hurt so bad, but what would take nice, normal people and turn us into such monsters. And even the anger level within me, the sleepless nights, the crying, is just something I've never experienced. And I actually found out that us human beings, actually all beings, go through a physiological change during grief. There are these things called neurotransmitters that run through our system. You know, you always hear of serotonin, you know, after you eat a big meal or something. But there's
many happy hormone, isn't it?
Yes, you got plenty of them. But they are depleted quite significantly when we grieve, and our bodies and minds are trying to get attached to life as a reality again. So we have to reset ourselves. And I always say this is a poor comparison, but if you imagine somebody who's going through withdrawal after coming off of some kind of a drug addiction, love is, I don't want to say an addiction, but it's a chemical connection to another person. And when we lose that, we go through that withdrawal, and it's awful.
And that's why you feel so terrible.
You do. And when I found out these neurotransmitters were involved, and I thought, well, how do we bring them back up again? And there's things we can do to feel better, be in the present moment, get some exercise, sunshine, talk to a friend.
Stuff they tell you,
yeah, those kind of things.
But you don't want to do that when you're grieving, though.
No, you don't. You don't. But when I realized that these neurotransmitters even they manage our perception, like how we see the world to be, and I realized that some of these fights I had with my siblings were about things that never even happened. But our brain stores incorrectly some of these things while we're grieving. Yeah. So then I felt like I need to tell people about this. Because if this is happening to us, I know it's happening to other people. So I became this warrior to get this grief information out. And I created this audio called How to Survive Grief. And I posted it on Facebook in the days when I only had 100 friends. And it went within a month to over 3,000 people. And Denise, people started writing me that not only did it help them understand and help ease the pain, but then I started receiving emails that I chose not to kill myself because of your words.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Because in that audio, which is now chapter 10 of the book,
I
talk about what's going on in your mind. And the bottom line is, at that point, I thought I had a moral responsibility to get that information out as far as I can in the world. And I'm not going to write a grief book. Sandra, if you can be brave, and I always knew, Denise, if I was ever going to write a book, it was going to be called We Don't Die. And so the miracles lined up, meeting a publisher, all those things, everything happened right as if I just kept taking the steps forward and the right people started showing up. And I am so grateful of the difference that it's made so many lives.
Yes. And, that's what changed it for me. I didn't know about the serotonin and the physiological things when I read your book, it helped me because I was in grief at the time too. And the thing is that we know we've got this mental idea of, oh, well, you know, someone's gone and you've got it all rationalized, but the heart is still splitting into 1,000 pieces. And to know that it's not just in your mind or in your emotions, it's actually in your physical body, that makes so much more sense. And we can't just brush it aside. We can, even for the hardest skeptic or the most stoic person, we can still go, actually, you know what, this is really happening.
It is. And you have to be very gentle on yourself, very forgiving, very loving.
And maybe that's the thing that, you know, opens our soul, if nothing else, or it cracks another layer. You know, we all have our little walls that we build up around our precious, sensitive hearts. So experiences like that crack open our soul. And I think that's how come we learn to let more love in, even though we've lost a huge chunk of love. Somehow other love seeps in and it heals us.
It does. And sometimes it takes time. I mean, I felt literally a dark cloud over me for at least 4 years. And then one day it started to lift. And that's when I realized that this is not me. This is not in my control. This is automatic. I'm doing the best I can, but you just have to ride it.
Yeah. And so you talk about that. I know people can access your book. Really, the way I accessed it was just signing up to your newsletter. Is that the easiest way to, because you're so generous like that?
Well, it's interesting because I don't want the price of a book to come between the information and the people that need it. And it's, if anyone goes to WeDon'tDieRadio.com, there's a little pop-up, join Sandra's Insiders Club. And that's just my mailing list, a fancy name. And I have a PDF file called The 19 Reasons Sandra Believes in the Afterlife. And I have that How to Survive Grief audio. And then it says, read a few chapters from We Don't Die. People start reading it and they realize it's the whole book here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and if you want to buy it and you want a hard copy, they exist.
Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, awesome. I couldn't put it down, really. I had to just chow through the whole thing because it's easy to read, which I love, but also, you know, very, very affirming. So I really love that. But that's how you can get a copy of that, which I know everyone's going to love here. So thank you for telling me that. That was just because I think we have these individual experiences that take us onto the path, you know, of what happens beyond this life. But I want to talk now about EVP because it's one of my favorite subjects, and that you also mentioned that in your book, and I immediately went like, bing, because I think I grew up around tape recorders and fiddling with them when I was a child with my grandfather's reel-to-reel, and then later on with cassette tapes. And then I had a job producing music on cassette tapes. And when I look back at this history, I'm going, oh, I'm all around sound here. And then I discovered EVP, which stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena, which is a kind of fancy way of saying we can get proof of the afterlife. But I will let you tell me what your experiences are, because I can't wait to hear.
I would love to share. And before I forget, do you know who the gentleman is, Marcello Bacci?
I do.
He's good. Just for your viewers,
he was one of the first pioneers, wasn't he?
Yes, but not a lot of people knew about him. He was in Italy, and he would use one of the old transistor radios, and even if it wasn't plugged in, and even when they took out the inside pieces, he would fiddle with them. It's something about his energy, and people's loved ones' voices would come through.
The voices, the real voices.
Yes, there are documentaries on him on YouTube. So really good. Okay, so my journey with EVP is eventually, with my research, I knew that I needed to start telling people about what I knew about the afterlife, but I still had too much fear. And the fear was if people were to ask me to use my mediumship ability, which I did develop.
Speak to my grandmother.
You see him? And I would be wrong, and people would laugh at me. And so I just didn't tell anyone. So I found out there was this thing called electronic voice phenomena. And I took a course at a beautiful retreat center. And there were only 5 attendees besides the couple that taught the course. And the whole idea is to use a tape recorder and record the sound of white noise or background noise or a fan blowing or raindrops or something like that. And with the intention of having our loved ones' voices come on them. And there was a real scary movie called White Noise that you may or may not know about, but and it was all about these EVPs.
But there
And
was
come
also
to find,
Frequency as well with Dennis Quaid that was a bit more hopeful.
yes, correct. Before, this couple had taught the Hollywood movie theater the art of doing EVPs, not realizing they were going to make it into a horror movie.
Oh.
Because the only messages that have come through are messages of love and messages of humor.
And say, we're here, we're still here.
Yeah. So none of the scary stuff. So anyways, although they said on one hand, they felt bad that it turned into a horror movie, on the other hand, a lot of people started being familiar with EVP, electronic voice phenomena. So when I studied with this couple, it was a weekend retreat, and I so wanted to share with people what I knew about the afterlife, but I needed something
concrete
of some sort to be able to share. So over the course of the weekend, we would listen to different things that they had recorded. We had done recordings on our own, but I couldn't hear anything. But in my recordings, this couple could actually hear accurate information about my family. And I thought, how could they know that? So on the very last night of class, I went to my cabin, and it was just raining outside, just pouring.
Perfect conditions.
Perfect. And I was sitting in my little bed, and I had my digital tape recorder, and I imagined my aunt, uncle, grandmother, and grandfather at the foot of my bed. And with the record button on, I said, okay, you guys, if this is real and I need to start sharing the reality of life after death, I said, you really need to speak loud, and I'll record this for a minute, and then I'll say good night. So I just held it out in the air, recording the raindrops.
With the rain coming in the night, thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah. And then I said, good night. That was it. And so I put on headphones and I rewound it and I listened. And about 2/3 through, I just got goosebumps. The hair on my body just stood up. And then I rewound it and I listened and I rewound it. And it said, good night, Sandra, in a man's voice. 2 women say, good night, good night. Oh. And then you hear a man's voice go, good night.
Wow.
And I'd like to say that gave me comfort, but all of a sudden I thought, everybody's around me all the time. Oh my gosh, do I have any privacy? Are they here? This is real. Oh my gosh. Well, what happened the next day, the final day of class, I went in with my recording. And there's different classes. There's class A, B, and C. And class A are the most loud that everybody can hear. Class B and C.
Categories of EVP, isn't
it? Yes, they could be your imagination. Yeah. Who knows? So everyone could hear mine. And there was a woman there whose daughter had gone off a building. She doesn't know if she committed suicide or if it was an accident. But all to say is, hearing my EVP, she knew her daughter was still alive because it was so clear. And just, I could see the healing that it did for people. And so I left that retreat. And for the first time, I told people would say, oh, do a recording with me. And I never knew if it would work, but I would. I'd either put the shower on in the background or water running or something. And it was really incredible. There was one woman that I had met at a conference, a different kind of conference. I've always been in transformational, self-empowering. I like to dabble in what makes us human and what, how to live the best life. And we did one of these recordings, and I heard, hello, Deirdre. So easy to talk now, easy to breathe. I love you. And come to find out, this woman had done something bad, and she was in prison while her father passed. And he had one of those tracheotomies that he held to his throat. And just the fact, so easy to talk now, so easy to breathe, and just the I love you. I mean, she
And
she
there's
was
the
healed.
evidence, isn't it?
She was healed. Yeah.
Just to
Another
say,
one.
just say easy to talk now, which you wouldn't have known what that meant, but
No. Here's
everything.
another little one.
Yeah.
I was on a shuttle bus from a hotel in San Francisco to the airport, and this woman sitting next to me, her mom had passed in Hurricane Katrina. That was many years ago.
Yes.
And she never got to say goodbye to her mom. So she was feeling this grief. And in my head, I said, should I say something? Shouldn't I say something? Should I say something? How can I tell somebody? Well, I ended up telling her about my journey and then about these recordings. She says, oh, can we do a recording? And I thought, oh, I don't have any shower to put on or background noise. We literally checked into San Francisco airport, sitting near the gate before she got on her plane, using the background sound of just the airport voices. And we said a little prayer and just asked the mother and to come in. Now, this woman introduced herself to me as Dee Dee. So I thought, okay, Dee Dee. Well, even though you can hear the background noise, I heard very loud and clear, I love you, Elizabeth. So I thought, that's strange. Said to her, she says, that's my real name. Only my mother called me Elizabeth.
Oh,
that woman
that
boarded that airplane knowing her mom was there. And once I saw that all this healing was possible, gosh, and I had the concrete tool,
yes.
I started sharing.
Oh, and how long ago was that?
When was that? It's about 2005 or so that I started being open, but it wasn't until 2010 after my dad passed that I really started shouting it from the rooftops.
Out of the closet by 2010.
Yes, that's right. When I saw how this information about grief can help and save lives. And then since then, my life has just been an adventure, meeting the greatest people, doing the neatest things.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And that's, it is the way, isn't it? Because when we say yes to our soul, when we say yes to the greater part of it, like the spirit world or the after, however we see that, when we say the big yes, I do believe that the spirit world gets behind us, don't they?
There's no question. I have had synchronicities, miracles. I've been traveling and just sitting next to the right person on an airplane. And I think, how is this possible? And I'm like, okay, thank you. I don't think we get the full journey that we're meant to be on. We'll just get that next step in front of us. If we can take that next step, if we keep our eye on love and being of service to humanity, even just to one person, you give somebody a compliment and
that person next to you on the plane.
You never know. But it has been miraculous, and I just have to trust.
Yes, it's not good for type A personalities that want to know the end chapter or the spoiler alert. We don't get spoiler alerts, do we, for our lives?
No, we don't.
And a lot of people think we're supposed to, or that we have as mediums and psychics, we have the skills to that, but often we don't either. No, it's so funny, isn't it? And, we do stalk, thanks to you, I have been able now to stalk lots of people through you, and I know you're a fan of Philip Dykes and Kerry McLeod and the amazing Scott Milligan, who I have had the pleasure of being his student when he came over to Australia.
Fantastic.
You seem to have gathered this really amazing and funky bunch. They're fun-filled, but
fun and funky.
Yes. How did you meet these amazing people?
Well, the people that told me about electronic voice phenomena told me that there's something called physical mediumship. Oh. And it was so far out there, I said, there's no way.
So the skeptic came back, went like,
oh, now, I mean, I believe in some of this, but some of these things happening in a dark room and no.
Ectoplasm.
You can't sell me on that one. And I got enough information and I thought, well, let me Google this. Let me look this up.
Because Google's accurate.
Yeah, Google's accurate. But I found David Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
The physical medium. And I, for the very first time, saw a video he had of doing a trance demonstration. And I didn't even know that existed. So I looked on his website. I don't think his website exists now,
Mm.
but he had recommended links. And one of them was Scott Milligan,
Scott's.
physical medium. I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's two of them. So I sent a friend request to this strange person, and he accepted it. He didn't know me. And I looked on his Facebook wall, and he had Voices from the Past at Banyan Retreat.
Mm.
I clicked on it. They said 1 space left.
Oh.
And I clicked on it. I said, if I'm truly an afterlife explorer, I need to know one way or the other.
For yourself.
For
in the
myself.
flesh.
And never need to tell anybody about it, but I'm going to go. And I couldn't have been more afraid that I'm going to sit in a dark room with strangers with
Spooky,
the possibility
spooky.
of dead people touching me.
And you think, because when you think of ectoplasm, you think of Ghostbusters and you think of slime and
I know. And a little commercial break for Ghostbusters. I didn't start telling people about ectoplasm and seances. I would not use those words, and I didn't tell very many people until I found out Dan Aykroyd, who wrote the movie Ghostbusters, he comes from a line of spiritualists that used to have seances.
Yeah.
And because of his family history, that's where he got the word ectoplasm. And Denise, when I learned that, I thought, I have backbone to share this. And you can even see interviews of him talking about these things. His father's got a great book out about Ghostbusters and ectoplasm and this whole world. So I thought, I can talk about it. But my first seance, sitting with Mr. Milligan, I'm sitting in a chair amongst about 25 people. There's a Christmas tree in the center of the room because it was close to Christmas. Tons of toys wrapped up. He's strapped down to the chair. I was paired with a roommate who took away a lot of the fear. She says, it's beautiful. It's fun. She says, oh, it's going to be great.
Especially Christmas too.
Christmas. Well, we were singing Christmas carols. I thought, how bad could this be? And then we were singing I Will Survive. Who doesn't love that
That's
song?
his favorite
I know
song.
all the words. Yes. And next thing you know, you hear the voice of Daniel, who is a voice that speaks through Scott. And he says, the children have arrived. And Denise, you hear all of the Christmas presents being unwrapped all at the same time, as if there's a dozen kids in the room. Some of the things had glow in the dark things on them. So there were balls around the room. There was a hula hoop seemed to be floating in air. Somebody was touching me with a little stuffed animal. And I thought, there's nothing here to be scared of. And there are no children that were in this group. And over the course of time, becoming friends with not only Scott, and then I really felt that this time I had already had my We Don't Die radio show, but I thought this story needs to be told with integrity. And it was about a year and a half ago that I was at Banyan, and Phil and Carrie were there, and that's how I met them over a drink. You know, we were
as you do,
as you do
in the bar afterwards.
And the bar is always a great place. But we just built this friendship up, and they had a dream of coming to America. And I just had this dream of all of them coming to America. And I really saw what they did. And I said, I have a way with integrity to share these wonderful
thing. Integrity is the thing. And that's what stands out with We Don't Die Radio. It stands out with the gathering. It stands out with some people that you just feel it. You go, no, these guys are for real. And they're often the ones that are not shouting from the rooftops.
And that's what makes it great. And I don't push, just like you don't. If people are interested, they want to listen to the story, absolutely. And if you think it's a little bit off the deep end, no problem.
Scroll on by.
Absolutely. But everything we offer, everything has a money back guarantee. You're not happy, don't worry about it. Try to keep everything low priced or free, and just really share the good news.
And there is, there's so much free stuff here. I'm just going to scroll down, because how do we get, we've got We Don't Die Radio. I'm going to put all these links below when we do publish it. So if you're thinking now, you're watching this going, I just need this now, there are links down here, so don't worry. But there is your beautiful book that you can get chapters of when you sign up to your newsletters, which is well worth it. You've got the Sunday gatherings, which is every Sunday now, which is like a whole free mediumship service with a beautiful speech and prayers and songs. And it's like this little package of hope every Sunday, isn't it?
Oh, that's very sweet. Yes, it is. I grew up going to church and didn't really care for it, but
Mm.
to create something that I want to show up for with
Mm.
music, prayer, and magic and spirituality and mediumship, it's just
No
joyful.
dogma though, like no one's shoving anything down your throat as far as
No,
what we believe, which I really like too. You can choose. It's
thanks.
just the non-denominational is really nice, because I know a lot of people, they think, well, what goes on in a spiritual church? It might be a bit spooky, I'm not going. But this is like your sample of being able to go without that psychological commitment of turning up, you know.
If you can be in your pajamas at
Yeah,
home.
well,
Yeah.
frequently am in my pajamas. But yeah, and so now you've got a course though coming up. Oh, you also do the demonstration, which is great because you host Phil and Kerry's demonstration, which
And Scott.
and
Yes.
Scott. I have a list this long of things I've got to look at because it's often at 4 a.m. in the morning for me. But we've got Scott, we've got Phil and Kerry's demonstration. It's like $15. It's so cheap, isn't it?
It is.
Just
And if
to,
people need a price break, I say just
you are,
email me
yes,
and we'll
you
give you one.
do. You do
And
price
we
breaks.
recorded when we first got into lockdown, because we're recording this with the whole
Mm.
COVID-19 pandemic. We had this dream of doing something together. Now we have done live events in person, but we had to
Yes.
cancel all of them,
Yep.
unfortunately. So we created something called Connecting with Your Soul and the Unseen World. And over 8 sessions, we came together all about evidence of the afterlife, trance and physical mediumship, evidential mediumship, all these things that people used to do, like table tilting and psychometry. I would say used to, some people are still doing it,
Still doing
but
it.
just, yeah. And it was a live course, but packaged now into a home study course. And it's just fantastic. I'm so proud of that.
And is
And
that
then
on now, or is that?
it's on now. It's forever. We'll
Oh,
have it. And in fact, our viewer is watching this as you
yeah,
are, and the links are
yeah,
below. But Denise, I'll send them all to you. But
sure.
that's
And
something I
it's
love. Yeah,
so it's evergreen. You can log on.
evergreen,
Okay, what should it?
evergreen. And we have a Facebook community that of people. In fact, another Facebook community is We Don't Die listeners, and there's over 5,000 people now that all talk about this conversation: living life, afterlife, grief,
And it's all
and just
there on
having some
YouTube.
friends.
So it's so lovely that you provide these lovely resources and connect some great mediums and connect us to you, so that we can, from our lounge rooms, which is a beautiful, even while we're not connected, sometimes I feel like I'm more connected.
Oh, thanks. And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I record most of these just in my house and never
Mm.
knew how far they were reaching. And I have actually met some of my listeners, and I've heard some very, very, very tough stories
Mm.
and how they found the show and now that they have life again. There's one gentleman who wrote to me not too long ago. His 3-year-old daughter had just passed, and he had his iPhone and he asked Siri to play some news. That's all the instruction. Siri opened up the podcast app and played We Don't Die Radio.
Holy cow.
That man and his wife went on to listen to most of my episodes, have now had readings with our dearest medium friends that we know and love. And although I know he grieves for the loss of his daughter, he's got his life back. So this is why I share it. You just never know
Yes.
whose life you're going to touch.
And there is a higher hand in all of this. However
No
you
doubt
see
about it.
that, that's kind of what we walk away with. Awesome. Now, I also know that we have another quirky thing in common, uh, totally random, but we both love soap.
I know, isn't that random?
You'd think we were dirty, but we're not. We just have
I
this love
know,
of,
it's just nice. And
yeah.
I know we were talking about this, and you can't have too much of the fragrances. And I don't like the fragrances either, but some of those natural ones like lemon verbena and the different smells, and just, I don't know.
There's
It's
something about it. I know, because I was watching something the other day and they were making a joke like, oh, when you give someone soap, it's because you don't know them and you don't care. And I'm thinking, I love getting soap. give me soap as a gift. But yeah, you must be the same, yes?
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm with my mom now. She's
Yeah.
78. I'm away from my home, living with her for as long as the world's in lockdown. I love her. And she's got all this soap and different things that people have given her as a gift. And I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna open this. She hasn't used it. All for me. And it's fun.
I love it. Keep
Be a
the
little
soap
girl.
rolling. So if we ever stuck with it, what a gift to give Sandra. give her soap. And then finally, this has been awesome to chat to you, and we've covered so much here about your, how you got started, the big questions and the anxiety and the fear that drove you to a place of love and confirmation, and all the offerings that you give, for a lot of it for free, with the Gathering and We Don't Die Radio. But if there's one conversation that you never get sick of having, what would that be?
Well, it's definitely that the afterlife is real, that we don't die. We don't have to see it to believe it. I think part of the deal we make coming into Earth and living a human life is to forget who we really are. And we all suffer sometimes too much with this negative mind that convinces us or tries to convince us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, and we're forgetting this bigger picture. And so we don't die, we live on. People don't realize, I didn't realize, that 2 or more forms of energy can live at the same place at the same time. And we know energy cannot be destroyed. So even though our bodies die, we live, our personality. We can't see the wireless internet around us. We can't see electricity, any of that, but it's real. And just as a log burns and it becomes fuel and heat, our loved ones live on. I love the term hereafter because I totally believe that our loved ones are in a world very similar to this right here, just vibrating at a different frequency than we are.
Yeah.
Denise, when we close our eyes for the last time, it is my passion that people are able to look back on their life because they weren't afraid of dying, that they took risks, they took chances, they went after their dreams, they loved fully, they did the best they can. Nobody's perfect, but that they can close their eyes. We can all close our eyes for that very last time with that confidence that we open them up again. When we open them, we're free of pain, we're whatever age we want to be, that little negative voice isn't there, and we're surrounded by our loved ones and even our pets, as if we're crossing a finish line and everybody's cheering us on.
And
but our life matters here. It really does. And it can be tough, but it is out of the tough times that I think we have the greatest growth for our soul, which is why I think we're here.
That would be something that I would listen to for my whole life too. Oh, lovely. Well, Sandra Champlain, thank you so much for being part of Spirited Conversations. I look forward to speaking to you more and more and more, and certainly seeing you online at the We Don't Die Radio and on the Gathering. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you, Denise.